welcome to Stand Up for Doctors. I'm your host, Kim Downey. Thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to welcome Dr. Dhruva Gulur and David Dibble. Thanks for joining us today, Dhruva and David.
Hi.
Thanks so much for having us.
You're very welcome. And by way of a brief introduction, Dhruva is a family medicine physician, patient experience and bipolar brilliance speaker, rapper, author, and mind hygiene expert. And David Dibble is the creator of 3D Healthcare and Loving Workflows and train the trainer facilitator of a certification program for leaders and managers. And his experience includes 20 years of consulting, training, and speaking in healthcare. And today we'll be talking about transformation, how Dhruva has gone through a massive personal transformation and how David has helped healthcare systems with massive transformations. And it's going to be a fantastic discussion. I just know it. I've been looking forward to it. I haven't had conversations with either of you in a while, so this is going to be terrific. And I always start by asking what you'd most like our audience to know about you as we begin our conversation. Dhruva, would you like to go first?
Yeah, the most important thing is I shifted my vision to everybody being nice to themselves and feeling good about themselves in the next second and forever. So that's what I want to, I really want people to be nice to themselves and feel good about themselves every second. So that's kind of what I would, I've been thinking about that for some time about, the complications of, oh, it's going to take 7 days. Oh, sit down and meditate for 5 minutes. And some of those things can be challenging. So let's just start off with 1 second and we'll take it from there.
Okay, thank you. And I love that. And that reminds me of one of your posts where you shared if you couldn't, we're having trouble motivating yourself to exercise or something, to tell yourself that you'll run for 1 second or do 1 push-up. And because obviously you probably aren't going to start, maybe with 1 push-up if you're me, but as far as running for 1 second, who's going to run for 1 second? So I love that mindset. And it seems so basic and simple, but I think it's really, really powerful. So thanks for starting us off by sharing that excellent nugget. And David, what would you like us to know about you?
I think it's that, and maybe it's not necessarily about me so much, but about us. I think we've reached a point in time where we are here to do our real work in the world. And our real work in the world is probably going to be something around transformation of fear-based consciousness to something based in love, and that's our real work. And in my particular case, it's about how we're going to transform healthcare from the command and control fear-based leadership and management that it has currently to one based in love and support for all.
Well, thank you. I really love that. And I know it resonates with both Dhruva and myself. And that's fantastic. And so Dhruva, would you like to share a little bit of your story and how you've gone through a massive personal transformation?
Sure. Yeah, I was born to immigrant parents in Juneau. I appreciate everybody that has served our country, who has allowed my parents to live the American dream for me and for me to be born and raised in this country where I have all the resources and the access to everything that I need to personally transform myself and then in turn help others. Oh, I really appreciate that. And, growing up, it was a challenging environment with, me being involved with Child Protective Services, Adult Protective Services, the Juneau Police, and my mom would go on to live with schizophrenia for 27 years. My brother would die from a heart attack after using meth and alcohol. He was found dead 17 days. And my dad would, die with narcissistic personality disorder alone. And, me, I was bullied when I was younger. So then I became a bully. And as I moved to Seattle when I was a teenager, I found myself in juvenile detention 3 times. And the people that I was running with, I was the kid with the lowest self-esteem, right? I was the kid with the most self-hatred. So I wanted to do the most. If somebody was taking jeans at a store, I wanted to take a full set. If somebody was taking a car stereo, I wanted the car, so that's, I was stealing. And with that said, my family came and they just rescued me from India. And they said, look, buddy, you're going to come for a couple of months and you're going to come into, I was 17. I think I might've been 17 and a half. Boy, that would have been it, huh? Dead or in jail. So then I go to India, but interestingly, just to kind of stop there at that moment when I was 17, I told myself, I was like, yeah, I didn't understand like what God was. I didn't understand what prayer was. Growing up in Hinduism, I don't practice any religion now, but growing up there, it's so strong and it seems like everything is wrong, right? You can't do anything. It seemed, I thought that anything I did, I thought praying was wrong. So then what happens is I'm like, well, if I ever get out of this, if there's something that you do for me, whoever it is, God, I strongly believe in God now. But, I'm like, I will do whatever I can to serve. Interestingly, as I became an attending, I've been speaking at the juvenile detention center that I was in for about 3 years now on maybe 1 to 2 Sundays a month. And I worked as a prison doctor for 6 months just to say, look, you know what? I need to fulfill this promise. I was going to work longer, but then there were some things that there were some personal things that came in the way and it was far away. But yeah, just interesting, just amazing testament to the prayer and to worship and then purpose. But then from that moment onwards, I go to India and thinking that I'll be in India for like a couple of months. I wound up being there for 9 years. So there was a lot that I learned there and a lot to go over. I was blessed to be able to get into medical school there, to be cool in Seattle. I was a wannabe gangster, right? Well, you can consider me a wannabe gangster in India too, of studying, but then I really did become the gangster, because in India to become a gangster, you got to study, like in the middle class, upper middle class. There's nobody cares about anything but studying. So that's what I did. But then I come back and then, the self-loathing behavior that was there when I was a teenager heightens, right? Because now I'm a doctor. Oh, I don't need you anymore. Oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm a doctor. I don't have any problems with anxiety. I don't have, so then that heightens. And then what happens is that I have a mental breakdown about 10 years afterwards. I had a substance-induced manic episode. I was drinking a lot, gambling debt. I did cocaine for maybe like 5-6 months. And then I go to rehab. And then what happens in rehab is that, okay, so now everything is here now. All the emotions are very apparent. And the interesting part about all the things that have happened in life to me is I thought that everybody is going through it. So I never like separated myself. I never was like, oh man, look at me. I was like, man, everybody's going through this. I was like, what are they doing? So then I start figuring, and like I said, in India, I'm like, what are you guys doing? Oh, you studying? Okay. Like I didn't know what it meant to be a doctor. Like I had no idea what that even meant. Like I didn't know what it meant to be sober. Like, but I'm like, all you guys seem to be doing it, so I'll just do it too. And plus, I'm a dumb doctor now, right? Because I'm the stupid doctor that got caught drinking and getting wasted. So then after that, slowly I began to personally develop myself. And then the pandemic came. And then I started developing these techniques that actually got me more high, like compassion. And I started learning about empathy. And then I started studying mindfulness. And of course, I was in cognitive behavioral, dialectical, eye movement desensitization. And then I came up with this concept, mind hygiene, where I realized that I can only be nice to myself. And I saw the brilliance in that. And then slowly I started developing more and more things. And then I started speaking on it. People started asking me to speak on it. And then, I rap. And then a lot of the times people are like, well, how did you do this? Well, I think it was mainly the rap music, because in rap, you write so much. There's not really too many melodies. You write. And then, if I'm going to record one song, I probably wrote 20 behind that. So you have to understand, like when you're writing all of the stuff, there's so much stuff that's coming out, like self-hatred, lack of motivation, not eating right, drinking, hating on others, like all of these things are coming out on repetition because I'm listening to it. So that's what really, I think, saved me. And now, I have a YouTube channel where I talk about, let's exchange the word disorder, disease, problem. It's my anxiety. Let's try to find the brilliance in it. How can we be brilliantly bipolar? And what I mean by that is, how do we be nice to ourselves every second, use these tools that have medical evidence to support them. And if I can do it, you can too. So that's kind of where I'm at. I was hiding this stuff, Kim, David, for years. Like this is like 2 years that I've been talking about this. So this is not like a lifetime. You know, I think I had to get past that near 4-year mark of sobriety. And I'm like, I think I got something here. You know, and then I started going speaking at that juvenile detention center. I was like, I think I got something. And then about a year later, like, what am I going to live my life hiding? Like, I'm so free now. You know, I'm so free about talking about it. And then that even makes me want to, you know, I work out more now. I eat better. I meditate, you know, for a few minutes longer because I talk about it. So that helps me too, you know, like as I'm getting older, I'm getting into better physical shape as I get older. So, you know, there's a lot to be said about the mind. And I just want to be able to impart that. So now I have a YouTube channel where I'm talking about that. I've developed a course called EFIT. That's EFIT, which is Emotional Freedom Inspirational Therapy, where you be nice to yourself and then you develop good relationships. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Hopefully I didn't take too much time there to go over.
No, well, thank you. So I know your story and it's incredibly powerful and it's hard to summarize it because you've been so much. And if we're talking about transformation, it's like one of the most amazing transformations, and just the fact that you've been able to do what you've done, given your background, and that you did somehow pull yourself up by your bootstraps and make this transformation. It's really amazing, and I'm just happy and proud of you that you were able to do that and that you're here and doing so well. So thank you. And David, if you would like to comment anything on Dhruva's story and then share your own.
Wow. Yeah, I just think it's so great. That's it's sort of the hero's journey that we're all on, right? But some of us, the journey's a little more extreme. So I just think it's beautiful.
Thank you.
So go ahead, David, and why don't you share some of your story? And I know you might have wanted to include something about your dad. You had a story also to share about your dad.
Yeah. Well, going way back, I actually, growing up, my main man was my grandfather. My dad was a tuna fisherman, and we didn't see much of him. And my mother probably shouldn't have had children. She was very angry almost all the time. And they were like oil and water. So even when my dad was home, he tried to spend as much time as he could on the boat so he wouldn't have to be with my mother. So my grandfather kind of took me under his wing when I was very, very small. And he was my guy, I mean, he taught me to swim when I was 5. And, he was basically, I would spend the weekends with him. And he died when I was 12, and I kind of went crazy. I started drinking when I was 12. I started doing drugs when I was 15. And I'm a little like Dhruva, the more the better. So I was kind of living this, I would call it death wishy sort of life. Lots of alcohol, lots of drugs, fast living, parties, so forth and so on. And just continued doing that. Went to college and got out of college. I started a business out of college with about $5,000 in the back of an old warehouse. And we built about a $10 million business, and I was still young. And I thought, well, I have all this stuff. I should be happy. But I wasn't. And so now I was doubling down on filling in the gaps with more fast living. And I was married to a beautiful woman, and I had 2 beautiful kids and the white picket fence, and I was miserable. So I was actually sitting on my couch February of 1980, and I had a very powerful spiritual experience out of nowhere. It scared the holy heck out of me. But in about 10 minutes, I went from being one kind of person to another. I quit the booze and the drugs that day. I started putting my marriage back together, told my kids, look, I'm going to be a better dad going forward. And I got on this path of being a seeker. I was interested in the big questions. Who are we? Why are we here? What's the purpose of life? How does the universe work? And at the same time, I also ran into two amazing men. One of them was W. Edwards Deming, who is probably the top quality and process improvement guru ever. And the other one was a man named Ilya Prigogine, who had won a Nobel Prize for his law of dissipated structures, which basically describes how the universe grows, evolves, and transforms. And so, and at the same time, I began studying a lot of the more esoteric teachings around, the mind and how it works. I was studying Eastern teachings and Native American teachings and the Toltec and you name it. I was diving in full bore. One of the things that really got my attention was the fact that change in the workplace in particular is a combination of two halves of an integrated whole. And one half is systems change. We knew that about 94% of all the outcomes we get, and in this case in healthcare, are a function of the systems, not the people working in the systems. So just think how that changes pretty much everything that we've been taught about the management and leadership, of healthcare. And then the second one was that in order to make systems-based change sustainable, you also had to grow the people. I think it was Einstein that said you can't solve problems with the same thinking used to create them. And so that meant we had to look at transformation at the level of the human mind, which of course is what almost all of these, big bodies of transformational information are all about. And so I ended up putting these two halves of an integrated whole together. And out of that came 3D healthcare and also what we're calling loving workflows. But prior to that, my father he smoked all his life, 3 packs a day. He got lung cancer and was told at one point after going through aggressive chemotherapy and radiation and all the stuff that they were doing at the time, he had 3 months to live. And he called me and he said, doesn't look good. And I said, yeah, and I've actually done quite a bit of research on cancer because we had a lot of it in our family. And I said, I don't think you have to die if you don't want to. I said, I'm going to love you either way and support you either way. But I had done all this research. I said, would you like to take a look at some of the research? Maybe there's some things here that you might want to try. So I flew to Texas and I showed him all my stuff. And he agreed. He said, well, I'll try a couple of these things. He was going to do visualization. He was going to change his diet. He was going to start spending time in nature. I think he blah, blah. So I said, great, I'll support you. So I'll go on the same diet with you. And so I was in really good shape. I was working out 3 times a week and I was, somewhat muscled at the time. And I'm very proud of myself. And in 30 days, I lost 30 pounds. And I went through a detox that I could only describe as painful. And at the same time, my dad was going through, all of the things he was going through, and he had the cancer to boot. The long and the short of this is that the cancer went away for him. He became a medical marvel of the VA hospital. Matter of fact, the doctor said, we don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. And one of the things I'd said to him was, look, when you get well, you'd always wanted to go to Costa Rica. And I had been surfing in Costa Rica and I love the place. This background that you see here and this thing, that reminds me of Costa Rica, my favorite place. And so I said, I'll take you to Costa Rica and we'll spend, 10 days down there. And I said, you were the navigator on the boat, so you'll be the navigator for us, and you'll take us wherever you think we should go. And so we did. We went to Costa Rica, and it's probably the best 10 days I ever spent with my father. And here's the interesting thing. He came home, he got laid off of his job. He'd always been a hard worker, and he became depressed, and he stopped his practices. And within 60 days, the cancer was back everywhere. So I just bring this up because this whole thing around disease, look, we create it. It gets created first in the mind before it gets created in the body. And and I'll just say this, in healthcare, if you can start to realize there's this integrated whole, it's not just the body over here in mechanics. There's this other half that which is equally important, which is how we are and how we think and how we believe around both disease and healing. And so I think, we are being called on to start to understand that, look, we're connected to all this stuff. Nothing happens in isolation. And so anyway, I've gone on a long time here too.
Yeah, no, well, your story of transformation is amazing as well, and there's so much synergy between the two of you. And even Dhruva could share, if you want, about your mom, right? You took your mom around, even things like I didn't know about David's story about his dad in Costa Rica. But Dhruva, if you want to respond to anything David said or share a little about how you took your mom around, and also anything that's helped you accept and embrace your challenges.
Yeah, no, that's really good, David. How from when you were a teenager, you had so much time to be able to think and transform, and, all of the things that you've done is very inspirational. It's wow, very cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So with my mom, I didn't really know her. I knew her for a couple of years when we were a teenager, but from the age of 0 to 7, let's say 0, when I was born until I was 7, we lived together, but then there was a lot of separation there with my dad and my grandmother. So there's that, but I didn't really know her. And then for 2 years as a teenager, I was in and out of juvenile detention, and she was hospitalized for 6 months. We tried to, I ran away and lived with her, but we never really knew each other then. And then when I went to India, I just had never thought that I had a mom. And when I came back, I'm like, I think that I probably need to do something. And at the time, my mom was institutionalized in Creedmoor Psychiatric Facility in Queens. And she was there for, I don't know, she was institutionalized totally for 16 years in lockdown. And then 9 years, she was trying to get in and out, of like integrated into society. And what happens is that I still can remember the day after I finished residency, about maybe a week later, I went to Saybrook Goldman House in Creedmoor Hospital, where they were stepping her down to get into society. And that was it. So we took her out, and then we lived together for 7 years. And, most importantly, Kim, I do like the idea of all the places that we've been to, like just me and her together. Like, she didn't have a passport. Like, I had to figure out a way to get her passport again because it was so long. So I was like, right when I got the passport, maybe a couple of years after we moved in, went to Mexico, we went to Puerto Vallarta, we went to Costa Rica, San Jose, and Jaco. We went there, and then we went to Aruba, Hawaii, Vegas, and then Cayman Island, and I think that might have been it. Yeah, to Hawaii. Yeah. So what happens is that, see, these times she just never even knew what it meant to be like normal, if you will. And during those times, there was a couple of things that I really remember. Is one time when we were walking through a Vegas casino, she said that my dad and her had been to Vegas, and she won like maybe $50-$60, and my dad took it from her, and she started crying. And, there was another time we were in Mexico, and we were looking at like a night show. And I just felt that I needed to do these things for her. I mean, at the time I was drinking, so I'm like, whatever, I'll drink and we can do this, So I just gave myself like the permission. But in any event, like she said, nobody's ever done this for me. And she started crying. And that's when I knew I had something, and I knew that I was fulfilling my higher purpose at some point, if you think about that. But then during COVID, she passed away. But I think some of the more important things was that we were under the same roof. She would say, come and sit down, let's have some dinner. Like, I never had understood what that was. you know, I would take her to like restaurants and we'd eat. I mean, we never had money for that kind of stuff. You know, my mom never had to worry about a bill now. So she would go to the grocery store, buy all kinds of stuff. And so those are like the real big things. And, you know, I learned compassion from her. I learned empathy from her. If you were to see her, like when we lived together, you would not know that she had schizophrenia. She would be in her room maybe 30 minutes a day doing her thing, her own thing. But yeah, you know, and if she was still alive, I probably wouldn't be doing any of this because, you know, I mean, I would have dedicated my life to her. But yeah, since she passed away, I'm like, what do I do now? Because she was my higher purpose, right? So she was my like everything she did, we did everything together. So yeah.
Wow. Well, that's just beautiful, you know, both of your stories, and I feel like we could talk for hours. So, since at some point the time will wind down, I want to make sure that you guys get the main messages out that you want to. So, David, if there's other things you want to share about the work that you're doing or anything, I just want to make sure that you get it in there.
Oh, thank you, Kim. Yes, I'm actually, I've been kind of a loner since I was about 3. And recently, I became aware that we are not going to be able to sort of live our purpose. I will not be able to live my purpose alone anymore. And that means we have to come together basically to sort of live our mission or live our higher purpose. And my higher purpose is basically to see if I could wave my magic wand, I'd see raising human consciousness globally to the point where we can resolve, you know, the many issues that we're facing as a species. And along with this, I realized I'm calling it the Great Gathering. It's the gathering of kindred spirits who are here to be a part of this raising of human consciousness. And I'm going to say this, and it's probably going to, you know, maybe it won't resonate with a lot of people, but it has to be systems-based transformation. Look, the physical universe is made up of systems and subsystems from the macro to the quantum level. And in nature, 100% of the outcomes that we get are a function of those systems and subsystems. When the human mind gets involved, the number drops to about 94%, but it's still a big number. And so we live in a systematic universe, and the human mind is systematic as well. And these, both the physical systems and the mental systems, are at the effect of universal principles. In particular, the law of dissipative structures. And the law of dissipative structures actually explains everything that's going on in the world, including what's at the heart of our many problems. And so this idea that we are going to come together, and in this particular case, through an entity we're calling a loving organization, which was sort of founded by a really wonderful physician, Apoorv Gupta, and Tom Dahlberg, who I know you know, Kim. These are two of the most amazing people that I know. And the Loving Organization is actually, I believe, going to change the way we look at transformation of healthcare from basically directive, fear-based to loving and supportive. And we are going to be able to make it sustainable as we go. So I just want to kind of a shout out for a loving organization, for loving workflows, which 3D healthcare, which is kind of the code that I cracked on how do we actually transform healthcare at the care delivery level and make it sustainable. That is also, I think, an important part of what we're doing with the Loving Organization. So anyway, that's the shout out. It's the coming together, the great gathering to take healthcare from where it is, sick care, to where it really needs to be, good sick care along with wellness.
I love that. And we'll put any links in the show notes. Did you want to share any of those here? How people, because everybody's going to want to know more about each of you and what you're doing. So we want to share any links so people can find you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I always forget that part. My website is thenewagreements.com. On, excuse me, on LinkedIn, it's at David B. Dibble. Trying to think, what else? Oh, you can reach me, David at thenewagreements.com if you want to email me. So, yeah, please come, I would love it.
Okay, that sounds terrific. And so Dhruva, I also want to make sure that you get to share the things that you wanted to share. And I know that you had some advice for patients who wish to support their doctors, and if anything you wanted to share about people when they're facing challenges.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm up to, so I don't know what people would really, benefit from in terms of this audience, like the patient experience audience. I would say definitely like the Bipolar Brilliance newsletter that I have. I'm doing that twice a week now on Mondays and Fridays. So if people want to sign up for that, I can give you the link, and then maybe I'll just leave it at that. Then you can get a free Mind Hygiene PDF, where it's just a simple PDF where you can figure out ways to write down what you're feeling and how you can be nice to yourself in the next few seconds, and then minute, and then hour, and then for the rest of your life. And the more you do it, the more it gets better. Mind hygiene, you could think about like your new workout program for your mind that has medical evidence to support it. It's worked for many people that I know. It works for my patients. You can see I have, I think the last time I checked them, I have 600 reviews online. And a lot of them do talk about how these simple steps have helped them, not only with anxiety, with the depression, not identifying with these things, but addiction as well. And addiction, I feel like one of the most important things about addiction is I feel that the worst addiction is the path of least resistance, which goes to all kinds of things. Oh, I don't feel like it. I can't. I don't. I won't. Self-limiting beliefs that leads to sleeping, not working out, sugar, fat, drugs, alcohol, whatever else you want. So how do we manage to break that path of least resistance? Well, here are some of the things that I did, and you can try it. And if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, hopefully I started a spark. And then, and I like to share the journey through the before and after pictures. I have so many before and after pictures. I'll share last thing with you is with David Goggins. Do you guys know who David Goggins is?
Not sure.
Yeah. David Goggins is one of my biggest, when you see some of my work, you'll see a lot of his inspiration in there. We had a similar upbringing. He was overweight, and then he was like, well, these guys can be Navy SEALs. Why can't I be a Navy SEAL? So he became a Navy SEAL. And then after that, he's been speaking on it and how he put himself through Hell Week, and he does all these runs and all these wild different things that are physically very taxing and demanding. And I saw some before and after pictures of him. I was like, wait a second, I think I have some of those too. And then I started pulling them out of the woodwork. There are still so many more that I haven't done. So some of the before and after pictures are not about me. I want to figure out a way to have people shift and say, wow, it's not about what he did. It's who gave him the resources to do this? I want to know. How did he find the resources? And how did he stay like this over a period of 5 to 6 years? Like, how did he stay there? That's what I want to know. And here's the process. So,
wow. Well, thank you both so much. I loved having you on, and I think there was even more synergy than I had anticipated between the two of you. And you both have an incredible, I love the way you said that, the hero's journey. You're both epitomize that, and your stories are inspirational. And you both kind of share what I would say too, is we're all in this together, right? And so anyway, I just want to thank you one more time for being my guest today. And in closing, to move the needle in healthcare, we all need to raise our voices, and we all need to care about each other. We already know that doctors need to care about patients. Patients need to care about doctors too. So stand up, doctors, and let's stand up for doctors.
Love you guys.
You're awesome too. We'll have to have a reunion episode sometime.
Would love
Do you want
it.
me to send you a link for that?
Absolutely. Send me any links that you want.